Welcome to Conversations. My name is Na Oyokwoti. Today we'll be talking about deepfakes and the cost of human scams. My guest is a senior lecturer in the School of Computer Science and Mathematics at the Liverpool John Moores University. She is Dr. Áine MacDermott. Hello, Dr. MacDermott. You're welcome to Conversations.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Deepfake is becoming a menace in our society, and now executives are being targeted, people are being scammed. And from your point of view as an expert, how do you think organizations can balance executive visibility with a need for protection in the new environment?
Yeah, I think definitely the first thing that they need to do is to raise awareness that it's happening. So there's obviously a lot of things in the literature about CEOs and other people in companies being targeted or deepfakes being made or different forms of misinformation. But I do think that an enterprise themselves needs to have a strategy in place. So if you have like an executive or you have somewhere low down in the company, like if something was to happen, if they have a risk strategy or some documentation in place so that if there's something happening or someone suspects that maybe their media might potentially be misused, that they know what to do. So like, if X happens, do Y or contact Z. Whereas I think there's a lot of cases where potentially the incidences could have been mitigated if someone knew, just who to speak to.
So, what role should boards play in ensuring executive protection doesn't just become a personal responsibility?
I think they need to take more awareness and more ownership themselves. So they need to definitely raise awareness, do more public engagement campaigns, and definitely have a company stance and policies that people can refer to. And as I said, being able to recognize, report, or potentially respond to any of these different types of media manipulations or scams. And there's a good range of tools that could be involved or used, such as like sensitivity AI, Microsoft Video Authenticator. I think it varies depending on like the type of company and stuff, but there's a lot of things that they could use in place. Even also like minimizing or preventing people from like accessing certain websites on a workstation or using social media or even having social media policies in place, things like that could then potentially minimize chances of risk.
Okay, all right, sure. So now we are looking at deepfakes as a corporate threat. So, what makes deepfakes such an effective tool for attackers, and what strategies should companies adopt to verify authenticity in real time?
Deepfakes and other forms of media manipulation, they're really easy to make and also easy to spread. And that's kind of one of the problems. You can make them using social media, you can make them using different types of apps. More sort of complex campaigns might be more sophisticated and I'd be, a bit more hyper realistic. But attackers actually don't need to be, hackers, or they don't need to have all of these skills. They just need to use a tool or send photos or send media to someone else who then makes it. And as I said, they're really convincing. The with a company or like an organization either being involved or targeted, someone sharing or pushing this fake content. It could be over email, it could be like on a Teams call, it could be on the social media platforms, Slack servers. There's so many different ways. The main thing with it is as well is a lot of the time it's a psychological pressure. Like, hey, could you quickly email me back, or could you send me this thing, or could you do this? And people like if it's like a fake image of someone or if it's a fake video call, which again they can be made up, often people don't realize and they'll send it and then they might after think, wait, hold on a minute. And there's like a psychology link to it where people generally trust faces and voices.
Yeah.
So if someone has a likeness of maybe someone they know from work, and they might just say like, oh, the internet's bad in my house today, but it's me, things like that. People might send things and then not realize. So often, again, it's exploiting and targeting that people generally just trust people or trust faces. And how you would sort of try to minimize that as well. So there's a lot of technology that can be used to help sort of try to detect scams in online meetings. Look for, like I mentioned Microsoft before, but like Intel have software as well where it can look for like biometric and like liveness detection, or you can use other things where it might say that the photo that person has is like a stock photo, from like Google Images and stuff. There's other different types of tools that you can use as well to look at maybe how someone's speaking, or I don't know, maybe saying they're like a bit robotic. But it all depends on what tools they have available. But I do think, going back to the question before, is that companies have to accept and take ownership that this probably will happen or could be happening. So they need to have plans and procedures and things in place.
Okay. So, but from where you sit as an expert, do you think these detection tools currently are effective enough?
I would say no. I keep saying it depends on budget, but there's some really good ones out there, but there's also not good ones. And what I mean by that is, so some say like deepfake image detection tools or deepfake video detection tools. Generally, that tool is just telling you if it's AI generated or not. It doesn't detect if like someone's modified it in different ways. So that generally like a deep fake, and when people think of it, would be like a video of, like someone impersonating someone else. But there's many different other ways that something could be fabricated or manipulated, and these tools don't detect this. Or you could run a deep fake media through the same tool, two different tools, and it'll give you different results. It might say, oh, this is not AI generated, or the other one might say, I'm not sure. And then you're like, what do we do with that information? There was a study by an Australian Commonwealth Scientific, so it's CSIRO, so Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, and they did a big study where they evaluated 16 deepfake detectors, and basically they provided that they give different results to the same sort of deepfake media, and that's it. It's like a lot of the time the results can be ambiguous. There's a lot of open source tools out there as well, but I think with organizations, they'll assume that the thing that they're paying for is giving them the right result, when really it could just be saying it's not AI generated. Another thing that some tools don't notice is if someone does a face swap. If you face swap two images or two different types of media, but the image being swapped is like an actual picture, it doesn't detect it because it's not AI, even though technically an AI thing swapped the two faces.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd say yeah, the tools aren't good enough. They need to get better, and I think we're trying to catch up.
We are looking at the human vulnerability in scams now. So there are a lot of individuals who have been tricked by AI-generated deepfakes. What does this tell us about the intersection of psychology and technology in cybercrime? And also, how can defenses be human-centered as well as technical?
Yeah, I think the human vulnerability, like you said, is definitely the thing that is the target. And unfortunately, people target people's like politeness, or if you're in the workplace and someone asks you to do something, you just do it. A lot of it is like social engineering. So it's like they take a likeness of someone, or they, pretend pretext, or they do the thing where they go, I would need this really quick. Could you send it? And often then it could be like, if the name of the person that you're getting these requests from is like a senior staff member or someone else, you might, depending on your role in the company, you might think, oh, I need to do that really quickly. So it could be like that. So that's the psychological sort of aspect of that. Again, the emotional triggers associated as well with trying to get it done quickly, and just trying to do your job. But also it could be like people aren't aware, or they don't think about it. A worry with a lot of people in a lot of organizations is now they have to be aware of the technology, and a lot of people don't actually know what deepfakes are, and they wouldn't think to question media. And I think there's a worry that people have as well, that like if they don't do their job right, they might lose their job. But then there's like the emotional side of, oh God, did I just send something I shouldn't have sent? And then, well, how are they supposed to know how to look out for these types of things? So there's a lot of companies, well, there's a lot of people online saying that they think they need to design security with generally if different types of users in need, and try to maybe help them feel part of the solution, because at the moment it seems to be it's just normal people are being targeted. But yeah, the intersection of sort of psychology and technology is, I think they're trying to study like how people react to media, how people just, you just try to be kind and do your job, and actually they target people, unfortunately, by being friendly, or just saying like, hey, if you've got a second, could you send that thing? And you go, oh yeah, no worries, yeah. And then you go,
Before
Yeah,
you realize
sorry.
it's too late. Yeah, you might have messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Yeah.
so from your submission, should mental health and digital literacy be part of cyber resilience training?
Yes, I think 100%. Obviously, I have a background in computing and I've been in like cyber for years, but I have a lot of friends who, don't do computing or haven't done IT before. And then in their workplaces, part of their thing is they need to be using lots of online tools such as like Teams and other like shared repositories. And now the onus is on them to make sure that they be secure, be safe, and and don't accidentally do anything. There's the side though of like it's that expectation, like, oh God, they don't know how to do it because they haven't been taught how to do it. And there's a lot of companies that basically just assume that people should know what to do when dealt with that scenario. So I do think part of the cyber resilience sort of training would be coming up or just like doing some online training courses, like my university does it, where you do some online courses and they present you with different scenarios and different ways that potentially people might exploit you or maybe the building or the organization, and what to do if certain things like that happen. But also like there's like you can just quickly call someone or you can quickly report these things if you think it's happening. And it's very much like they make it like you're trying to protect the university and we're all part of it, lower down, higher up and things like that. So I do think digital literacy, firstly, on okay, this is how you need to do the things and making sure people understand what to do and how to do it is important because I think people can't just assume that everyone already knows things like that. And also, then there should be mechanisms in place if someone, unfortunately, is the victim of a deep fake, or maybe they do something that leads on to something else happening in the organization, that there's support mechanisms in place to sort of help them realize that it's not their fault and just unfortunately they were the one who was targeted or clicked on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, I just want to chip in with an experience that I'm in Ghana actually. And there's something we on WhatsApp, when people hack into people's WhatsApp, they start soliciting from the contacts of the victim. And by the
Yeah.
time the victim realizes it's too late, so someone, oh, did you ask me for money? And the victim says no. You realize that no, it sometimes really affects the mental health of the victims. And I agree with you that yes, we need that cyber resilience training.
I actually got, just on that note, a similar incident. So I'm based in Liverpool, but I'm actually from Belfast. And when I was home at Christmas, there was a report in the local newspaper that was saying romance scams were particularly affecting people in Northern Ireland.
Mm.
And one of the things with it is I know at least one or two family friends, and it was they'd got made new friends either from Snapchat or been on other social medias. And then it was like what they were on the WhatsApp asking them, going, oh, hey, or like, oh, I need bus fare. You wouldn't have to have. And they go, oh, yeah, no worries. And then it was, oh, switch to this other app called Zangi. And then it was like, oh, can you help me? I'm having issues. And it's like, you think of a new friend, and then it's like, oh, could you send me a voucher? And then it started, and it was saying worryingly, like obviously across the whole UK, but definitely in like Northern Ireland, they were saying before Christmas there was like hundreds of victims ranging from teenagers to elderly people all being targeted because they got, either someone just added them on WhatsApp or they'd met them on something else on like online forums or whatever. But it's just scamming, it's
Wow.
terrible.
Wow. They are getting sophisticated every day, every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are looking at the role of social media and the public presence. So we know celebrities are becoming prime targets because of their highly visible public lives and abundant, media footprints online. So with this case, how can these individuals with high public visibility responsibly manage their digital presence without retreating from public life altogether?
Yeah, I think there definitely needs to be some form of curation, not like coming off social media completely, but I know most celebrities now have this is their one profile, but maybe having not everything online, because one of the things with a lot of the deep fakes and a lot of the manipulated sort of media is the more images you have, the videos, the voices, and all that, the more training data that you have of someone, the easier it is to make it, more realistic.
Mhm.
Um, I think for like an organization or an individual, maybe there should be like a public profile and maybe like a semi-professional one.
Mm.
But again, it's not. I feel bad that you're telling someone like, okay, don't use social media as much because people might manipulate it. I think having strong authentication on their accounts, minimizes the potential of exploits. So like years ago, was it Jennifer Lawrence, the actress? There was a lot of celebrities that were victim of what was called like the Apple hack, but it wasn't actually an Apple hack. Everyone said it was like a cloud server hack, and it was they all got targeted via social media, sorry, phishing campaigns. So they were sent links like, "Hey, you need to update your password," and they did inadvertently type into the illegitimate link, and then scammers got in. That's how they got all of their data, all of their photos. I think it targeted some other like Disney celebrities as well. But so things like that, having strong authentication and safety on your accounts minimizes potentially somebody getting into all of your files. Also using like moderation tools. So looking at the content, maybe there's accounts that keep spamming, people are interacting. I would say, unfortunately, when Elon Musk took over Twitter, he took away the integrity checking feature. So Twitter used to be good at making sure all accounts were verified. And if something seemed legit or if it seemed like a scam, you could report it and it would be removed. Similarly, I think Facebook now has removed that automatic integrity checker thing. And now I think anyone can have scammy or spammy accounts targeting people, which is not good. But yeah, I would say definitely for like a celebrity, they just maybe have to have like a plan in place for if maybe fabricated media of them comes out, that they either try to get it taken down or they like try to like minimize what's happening. But I think for a normal person as well, it's just maybe trying to like, I don't know, watermark some media, add in some like ways that you can verify the origin. Yeah, it's unfortunately like try to add mechanisms in place that if someone does use it, that it perhaps doesn't take on your full likeness.
Okay. So these celebrities live off social media. Some of them practically feed on social media. They get money from social media. So do you think practical steps like limited types of content or certain types of content, do you think they can genuinely make a difference?
Uh, yes and no. Yes, hopefully because then there's less media of them on there. But I don't know. I think having a plan in place, so like assuming someone will try to fabricate and come up with or sort of mess with the media, and then knowing how to then say, hey, that's not me. Also, like the platforms that the social media is on, it needs to be easier to report these types of deepfakes. Like I've saw people that I just follow online because I like watching their makeup routines, and then they share and they say that other people have just copied a video that they've put on, and they're trying to sell like diet products or they're trying to sell all these other things when they don't take them down.
Mhm.
So it's really hard to then, if you have steps, like maybe, like you said, maybe only using certain types of media or trying to limit it. Or like I think some people they post every so often and then they go back and they delete posts, but then people can still get that because then there's I'm pretty sure there's people online and they then have like fan accounts and every time a celebrity posts something they share it to another thing. It yeah.
Yeah,
Um
automatically it just goes
I
on
think
to the heart.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think there's a lot of tools or like on things online that people are saying like watermarking and sort of like verification of media and things like that. But I don't think that's going to stop people just like taking a screen grab or trying to record or trying to do something. I think if the media was then used for like a criminal thing or like a certain crime, like the digital forensics and sort of cyber investigators, they would then prove that the media is not sort of authentic or it's been modified and stuff. But the problem is with a lot of these scams or a lot of these deepfakes is it's all shared on social media. And when something is uploaded to social media, it removes the metadata. It removes a lot of the file details. So then trying to trace the original file to prove that the file in fact is a fabricated one, that's like a whole thing as well. So yeah, I just think the whole domain is just you just want to hope that you don't become a victim of a scam or targeted and people make fake things because it takes a while to get it all taken down or trying to prove that it is in fact like a disinformation campaign or something.
Yeah, that's true. So now we are looking at the regulation and then platform accountability. Now, I don't know if you know about the Taylor Swift or Grok image controversy. It's raised some questions about AI platforms' responsibility for harmful outputs. Do you think current regulations are sufficient to hold AI platforms accountable, or are we relying too heavily on companies to, self-police?
Yeah, I don't think, I think the current regulations need updated and changing, but I also think platform accountability needs to be better. So specifically, like here in the UK, I did a talk recently where I was talking about like deepfakes and forensics and stuff like that. The Online Safety Act of 2023 was introduced because of the rise of deepfakes of non-consensual, child abuse, women, females being targeted and things. And they were basically trying to criminalize the sharing of non-consensual media. So they put the Online Safety Act up. There was a target trying to focus on children and stuff, and also trying to criminalize deepfakes. But the problem was that it didn't actually make sharing the deepfakes illegal. So they did an update this year, thankfully, where in 2025 they said it's a criminal offense to create sexually explicit deepfakes without consent. And also then there's been more from like platforms and things. So there's been some like local government discussions on the role of regulators. So here we have like Ofcom, and we have other like government things in place. So Ofcom's been saying since like there was some summer riots last year or the year before, and it was all to do with like misinformation spread on Twitter and stuff. And they had a whole discussion because they were trying to say like Twitter and other social media platforms should be held liable for a lot of the times when it's fake things being spread. Um, and actually, recently, then they're basically saying in the UK, supposedly Ofcom now has more power to enforce compliance. So if they see an organization purposefully like sharing disinformation or sharing malicious things and doing nothing about it, then they can do something. Supposedly, they're going to push out some guidelines. They're going to do name and shame reports, but they have publicly already sort of had negative things to say about X and Facebook and TikTok and things like that for a lot of these things. And I think the problem with it is, again, I'll just say here in the UK, for example, like X is, I'm not sure where their servers are, but that's like America, TikTok's Chinese, Facebook's global, it's European, so the laws and things are different. And then people say like how people act online, for example, here in the UK is completely different to in the EU. Another thing recently introduced here is now you have to have age verification on social media, supposedly to protect children, but it just means like I can't access my Blue Sky messages because I haven't verified them with my ID that I'm over 18, and I'm like I don't want that account anymore then. But that's just the government supposedly trying to regulate and do things. But yeah, I think another thing, sorry, just on that note as well, is I think you were saying about legislation. The Danish government, however, had a really good idea. They've actually given each individual, or they're proposing to bring this law in, where they give every individual the right to their identity, their likeness. So like their image, their voice, things like that. So that if anyone creates any AI generated deepfakes, they're infringing upon that person's individual copyright. Therefore, it would be easier to remove the things. And it's probably I think the first country in Europe to do something like that.
Okay. Okay. So from what you mentioned, what legal or policy changes would have the most immediate impact in curbing deepfake abuse?
I think firstly targeting who makes it, like how it's made or how it's shared. So literally targeting a site that's hosting it. So as I said, if there's been examples of like the government's trying to hold X liable for sharing known disinformation. They actually did, because I sent some written evidence in to support the discussion, because they were trying to get more information on basically, so a lot of social media platforms go, oh no, we didn't know. But actually it's how the algorithms are set up. You've got echo chambers. So basically the more things that someone shares, so for example, the more extreme things that someone might share, like on certain types of content, the more then they would be recommended with that. So then if you start sharing things, it then basically they were trying to get people to have like more reach and stuff. But the government was basically saying like, look, your platform shared this, it led to riots, it had, catastrophic effects. And also it was lies, and people tried to report it and said it was lies, things like that. So they were trying to hold X liable, but it didn't really have as much impact. I think blocking accounts or trying to, minimize people like making new accounts and stuff should help. I know people do that for like threat intelligence or like pseudonyms and stuff. But I'm not really sure. I think trying to, create legislation for like not the world, like locally would be better. So for example, in America, so California came out with this really good legislation. I think they proposed it in 2023, but in 2024, they basically brought out this new legislation that says in an election campaign, you can't make deepfakes of political, people in the political race. And it was basically like against the law. And then this year, I think it was in August, so last month, it went up to court because this person who made this parody video of Kamala Harris, and it was quite a mean video, he sued the government and said that they were infringing upon his like Second Amendment rights and his rights of freedom of speech. And then Elon Musk and X supported that, and all of a sudden now they're changing the legislation and they're basically sort of backtracking. I thought it was really good that they were like trying to say we need to stop making this, but also there needs to be a way to tell people like this is a parody or this is fake, and that's something again. I will get to the point, but before Elon Musk took over X and before the last 2-3 years of like the world has happened, it was a lot easier for people online to see if something was fake or a parody or if it was whatever, because they used to label them. And now they don't, because now it infringes upon people's rights. But there's a lot of people out there who don't question what they read or what they see and what they think about online, and therefore they take everything in as face value, and that's unfortunately a problem.
Okay, so now we are moving to gender dimensions of deepfake. Should regulation explicitly frame deepfakes as a form of gender-based violence?
It is in many reports cited as being something that is targeted against females and teens and young children, unfortunately. I would definitely say that it should be gendered as a form of abuse, but maybe not fully gendered. I know definitely for videos, like there was a report in 2019 from Deeptrace, and they cited of all the online deepfake videos online at that time, 97% of them were non-consensual pornography. And of that, obviously, a lot of them were female. Similarly with celebrities and stuff as well, it's female. There's high-powered CEOs and a lot of like corporate women, and unfortunately, that's happening as well. Like the FBI have this. They actually did a lot of reporting on this in 2022, 2023, where they were saying the rise in sextortion cases of like young adults, and again, generally women, but there were cases of men as well, of people either being exploited or what do you call it, blackmailed, or made to say things and stuff because of fake media that was made with them. So I do think definitely saying that it is a form of abuse, I think that would be good, or that would be accurate. I think depending on what report you read and maybe where, there could be some statistics that show more of it's gender based, but I do think generally it is a form of abuse because most of it's non-consensual, and it's across the board.
It's been an interesting discussion so far, and we are moving on to preparing for the next wave. So with technology evolving, technology is evolving rapidly. Deepfakes could soon move from scams and harassment into more establishing areas, such as politics or diplomacy. As an expert, if you were to advise government or boards today, what single priority would you tell them not to ignore? What's the most important thing you think they should not ignore?
I think they shouldn't ignore how it is literally everywhere. I was trying to find I'm trying to find a good example because I'm preparing my material for the next semester of like what industry's been affected. But generally it's everything. And I think the general public needs to be made aware of deepfakes and the different types of media. Particularly as well. So I do a lot of work with the local police and sort of digital forensic units. And even there, they don't have the tools. well, they have some tools, but they still don't have the right way or the right mechanisms or the right methodologies to produce consistent results, because again, the types of deepfake or manipulated media can vary. So I do think we need to definitely educate people and get them more aware. I know at the start of this we asked questions about like corporations, and there's a lot of recent examples of like financial fraud and sort of CEOs being targeted. But there's a worry of different types of deepfake and sort of manipulated media creeping into the criminal justice system. So people creating fake alibis, or there was an example of a person in like a child custody case where they produced fake audio of their husband, basically saying, you know, him saying bad things so that they could try to win custody. Or like people uploading evidence of like an identity check, and it's manipulated, but the online system doesn't check because it doesn't seem to do that. There's just a lot of different ways where it potentially could be creeping in, and people don't worry about it. I'd say globally, obviously, politics. I know you said pick one, but I'm just saying society. But
It's
like
fine. You can.
politics and the world, I would say, for example, in America, the introduction of fake news, which is just silly. But you know, you've got now a generation of people who, if they don't believe something, they go, "Oh, fake news." But then in the courts of law, you then have someone saying, "No, that's fake. How do I know that that's not real?" So, from like a digital forensic perspective, generally you create a digital image of the device. So, for example, you might image someone's phone, you create a digital image, and then you analyze that digital image that you've made. But now people might say, well, how do I know the media on that isn't manipulated? So now you have to go above and beyond to prove, well, the photos that we're using in that case are 100% legit. And then people might say, in your opinion, and you're like, well, no, yes, I am the expert. But it's like you have to add this additional level of, you know, verification onto all of the different types of media. Because again, people just might go, oh, I don't believe that. And again, if just going to America, there's been cases of people using AI in the court of law. So, for example, there was a case recently thrown out of the court because the defense or the people presenting, they used a tool that AI enhanced the CCTV footage that they were using to make it a bit clearer. And the court ruled that they fabricated the media. They argued that they made it clearer, but also technically there's a way that you have to word it in the court of law that, you know, you need to take what the thing is showing you as legit, but actually it was modified. You could argue for the good to make it easier for people to see, but there's the guidance on it and the understanding in the courts is different. So the court right away went, right, well, we can't use that evidence because you've fabricated it. And they're like, no, but to make it easier to see. And they were like, no, you've used AI. And yeah, so I just think everyone needs to be more aware. It's definitely piqued my interest, and this was something I've been focusing on, sort of from the forensic perspective, the societal effect, and like trying to educate users and stuff as well. It's not like there's one specific thing. It seems to be an ongoing thing. But I do think sort of educating people on the different ways that things potentially could be faked or fabricated will help make them a bit more aware and also a bit more paranoid, but we'll see.
Thank you so much, Dr. Áine MacDermott, for your valuable insights into the evolving risk facing, executives, celebrities, individuals, and even children. As we've seen, tackling cyber threats requires not only technical safeguards, but also human awareness, cultural sensitivity, as well as strategic foresights. That's all for this edition of Conversations. I look forward to seeing you again in another episode. My name is Na Oyokwote. Thanks for watching.